has always been the sense that there was something that wasn't right about that period between 2017 and 2019. Something felt off, and nobody could quite say what it was. That the way the political developments were unfolding didn't feel organic. It felt like there was some sort of hidden hand behind all sorts of things, including the anti-Semitism crisis. And I'm not saying the whole anti-Semitism crisis was invented by like 3 people in a smoky room.
Hidden hand in 2018 that have gotten you a front page in the Sunday Times.
Exactly, right? But there is a hidden hand. We do know what that hidden hand is. Labour Together, the Labour Together project. It is Morgan McSweeney. They are working secretly behind the scenes with a pot of undeclared money to place stories in the media about the anti-Semitism crisis. And they're doing it at the same time as they're pursuing a very explicit political project to destroy Corbynism from within, right? Through a campaign of like pretty elaborate public misdirection and deception. So until that had been uncovered, and that's precisely why Morgan McSweeney identifies discovery as his key threat. Because if you do discover it, if you can say, oh, I know that story comes from Morgan McSweeney. Oh, I know that story comes from Imran Ahmed. It gives you a little bit of ammunition to fight back with. It gives you a framing where you can say, oh, well, this is actually a right-wing Labour stratagem. And we can at least have a debate and a discussion around that and place it into political context. Whereas without that, you have the sense from people, they're saying all the time, and there's a number of one of the really malignant outcomes of the work that Morgan McSweeney and Imran Ahmed is doing around the anti-Semitism crisis is that you have loads of left-wing Jewish people at the time saying, this doesn't feel organic to me. This doesn't feel right. I feel like the way it's playing out, I feel like anti-Semitism is being weaponized for a factional agenda. I think there's a right-wing Labour faction that's involved in this somehow. We don't know how, but there is. And those people are then upbraided for being anti-Semitic because they're being denialists, right? That is basically in the public consciousness presented as an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and it's not. It's literally what was happening. It's literally the truth.
I want to be an arsehole for a second,
Sure.
And I'm going to pretend to be a lobby hack. So I've got to get into character and pretend I went to private school.
Right.
And so I can imagine a lobby hack reading this book and going, okay, well, isn't it breaking news? Politician ran deceptive campaign. It's a dog bites man story, right? What's extraordinary about it?
What's extraordinary about it? I mean, there's all sorts of extraordinary things about it. For one, for me, we haven't even touched on this yet, is the money, right? That for me is one of the things that makes it unique, is that you have lots of like politician doing bad stuff stories, but it's very rare that you have the prime minister of the country is the prime minister in part because the chief of staff had access to a pot of funding that he was failing to declare according to the law for 2.5 years.
Where did the money come from, and what was the expected return on investment?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So the people who are putting in the money, the 2 primary donors are Trevor Chin and Martin Taylor. Trevor Chin is he's donated to loads of people in the Labour Party. He's very closely associated with pro-Israel causes. He's part of the Jewish Leadership Council. I think it was just this last year he got awarded the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor, I think it is, for services to Israel. And
that's a real club I wouldn't want to be a member
exactly.
of.
I think it was given to him by Isaac Herzog, like maybe 9 months after Isaac Herzog's been cited in the ICJ judgment as saying plausibly genocidal things.
Harold Shipman's Doctor of the Year,
Exactly. So he is, Israel is really central to his politics, although he is also, generally speaking, on the Labour right. Martin Taylor is a bit more of an enigma. We do know that he's like a wealthy hedge fund manager. He runs like a small hedge fund. Generally speaking, he funds people on the right wing of the party or sort of the soft left of the party. It's not entirely clear to me how much these 2 funders knew about what was going on, I have to be honest. Certainly people I was speaking to would suggest that Martin Taylor wasn't entirely aware of what was happening behind the scenes. Well, what you do have is between beginning of 2018 and mid-2020, which is precisely the period of time in which Morgan McSweeney is destroying Jeremy Corbyn secretly, incubating Keir Starmer's leadership campaign, and then running it. Labour Together isn't declaring £740,000 in donations, which in Labour Party terms is a very substantial pot of money. It's really,
in America, they wouldn't get out of bed for that, but in British politics, that can buy you a lot.
That's like barely going to pay for like Hillary Clinton's like hairstylist that day, right? Like but in British politics, it's a huge amount of money, and it's used very effectively in the British political scene. And Morgan McSweeney isn't declaring any of it. So under the law, it's very clear. Labour Together is what's called a membership association. And they're a members association because they have they have MPs on their board. So at the time, they have three MPs on their board. It's John Cruddas, Lisa Nandy, and Steve Reed are on the board of directors. So that makes them a members' association according to the Electoral Commission, which means that every donation over £7,500 they have to declare. And for that entire period of time where Morgan McSweeney is creating a purposefully misleading campaign about what they're actually doing behind the scenes, he's also failing to declare those donations. So there's no knowledge at all in the period between 2018 and 2020 that they are not reporting those donations. There's no knowledge at all they get taking in this money, which is part of the reason why, for example, the Corbynite team can't respond to them, because there is no knowledge that they are so well funded. There's no knowledge that they actually have this money. If Morgan McSweeney and Labour Together had actually declared their donations in that period of time, people would say, what on earth are you doing with £740,000? It doesn't cost £740,000 to host 3 meetings a year in a village hall about non-factionism, run a website, and write some articles.
The catering must have been
incredible, right? Like, just spectacular. So that is part of the deception, I think, is the failure to declare. And I argue in the book, and to be entirely clear, it's not an allegation that they failed to declare. It's a confirmed fact, because the Electoral Commission did investigate them in 2021. They were found guilty of it. They were found guilty of violating electoral law. Labour Together said at the time, when they were fined, I think they were fined £14,000. They said it was human oversight, administrative error. We never meant to do that. And a big part of the first part of my book is to basically say I don't entirely buy that argument. That I think it is at least as plausible that Morgan McSweeney chose not to report those donations because it helped with his political project, because it was politically useful for him to not declare those donations, and also
because the biggest threat was discovery.
Exactly, because the biggest threat is discovery. If he declares those donations, people are going to ask him what he's doing. But also, what I did was I dug as deep as I could into the material. I have some material from this leak that I have, but I also went to the Electoral Commission and did FOIs and got material out of them. And one of the things I got in December 2023 was the set of correspondence between Morgan McSweeney and the Electoral Commission, which shows incontrovertibly, absolutely incontrovertibly, that Morgan McSweeney tried to convince the Electoral Commission in 2017 that he didn't need to report donations. And they tell him, no, you have to report donations. You have to report donations over this amount. This is the form you need to fill in. And there's an extended period of correspondence that they enter into over a couple of months, up until, I think it's February or March, where they're constantly telling Morgan McSweeney how to report donations. And he's saying, yes, I will do it. There's no doubt in my mind that Morgan McSweeney is utterly clear of his need to report donations and how to do it. And he's also telling people he's reporting donations, right? He's meeting MPs in Parliament in 2019, and some of them say, is Labour Together required to report donations? Are you doing it? And he says yes. Labour Together's website says that they're reporting donations from April 29 onwards. Shabana Mahmood writes an article in February 2020 for Labour List on behalf of Labour Together, where she says 2 things which are entirely misleading. One, which is that Labour Together has no role in the leadership election of Keir Starmer, which wasn't true. And 2, we report all our donations, and they weren't. So you have a situation where they're trying to they're keeping a secret about their political project, which is all based on deception. Morgan McSweeney knows he has to report donations. He's tried to convince the Electoral Commission he doesn't have to, but he knows he has to. He's telling people he's reporting donations, and he's not reporting donations. And I look at that evidence and I say, well, does that say human oversight and administrative error, or does it say something else?
You know what I think about it. Yeah. You know what I think about it. I want to move on to the present day because I've got 2 final questions for you. The first question I have for you to bring us to where we are right now. What are the implications of how Keir Starmer ran these campaigns for how Britain is presently governed?
Right. I think there's a couple of things to pull out there. I mean, the first is that when Keir Starmer wins the Labour leadership election in April 2020, it marks a fundamental transformation in the nature of the Labour Party itself. Because Morgan McSweeney is probably the most intensely factional person with this amount of power that's ever taken power in the Labour Party. And very rapidly, very, very quickly, he installs his allies in the Labour Party, and they completely transform it from top to bottom. There is a replacement of councillor level people. There's a huge number of members who resign. Jeremy Corbyn's kicked out, of course. Diane Abbott is treated terribly.
It's a total recomposition of the party.
There's literally somebody briefs. I think it's a New Statesman say we are in the process of fundamentally transforming the DNA of the Labour Party. That's what they say, and they do. They actually do it, because one thing they have in hand for them, that's very helpful for them, is that the Labour Party's only won 200 seats in 2019. But from the Liz Truss moment onwards, it's guaranteed they're going to win 350 to 400 seats, which means that they have this unique opportunity to handpick 200 MPs coming into Parliament, which is what they do. And they handpick there is a particular type of person they basically create a political monoculture, right? They create a political monoculture of people who look like them.